Horror ghost stories, ghosts in the hospital. Since I was a child, I've always hated ghost stories, because I thought people only made up ghost stories to scare weak-minded people or women and children. For me, there are no ghosts, especially when I was a child. I was a very naughty child, often destroying the village, so I even came up with many ways to scare away ghosts to scare people and amuse them. For example, when I was only 10 years old, I was already shy of the neighbors. I still remember the image of that time very clearly. At that time, diagonally to the left of my house, there was a fairly large alley that many people often passed by. At the beginning of the alley there was a very large kumquat tree. The ripe fruit looked like a long white guava, very fragrant and delicious. Seeing that I often climbed up the kneading tree to practice being Tarzan and secretly pick fruit to eat, the neighbor Mrs. Two scared me that this kneading tree had a ghost that often appeared and teased people at night to scare me so I wouldn't climb up again. Unexpectedly, she scratched the right itch, so I thought of a way to become a ghost to scare people right away. That night I poured a little water into the white balloon to make it heavier, then puffed my cheeks and blew it up to make it stretch, then tied it tightly. Next, I cut a few strips of newspaper about half a meter long and tied them to the end of the balloon. Let it become a long, dangling tail, then I tie a long black thread, wait until it's dark, I hug that balloon, climb up the tree and knead the tangled branches and leaves, the wind whistles in the middle. Vast dark night, but what's the point? It's so easy. I don't know the branches by heart and climb them every day. I hung the balloon on a high branch, then connected a long black thread to the ground and stretched it across the alley, hoping someone passing by would kick the thread, break the string, and let the balloon fall. I gently returned to the attic in front of the house, curled myself up in a thin blanket, lay still, excited, holding my breath and watching. There was no moon that night. The few stars shining high in the sky could not bring light to this place. The alley was very dark at that time. A few oil lamps flickered next to the poor windows of the neighboring houses, not only did not illuminate the path but also made the scene dark and spooky. Occasionally a gust of wind rushes past, making the branches and leaves tremble, creating whispers like complaints and moans echoing from a distant darkness. About half an hour later, from the attic in the house, I held my breath and looked out at the street, waiting anxiously because I saw Ms. Thursday Tan and Mr. Thai Duc, who lived in an alley that had been out late at night, coming home. These two people are very close friends. Ms. Thursday Tan, thanks to her bare skin and thin body like withered leaves in autumn, looks quite beautiful, but Mr. Thai Duc has a acne-prone face and messy hair. Seems like a delinquent and often bullies us kids. I saw Mr. Thai Duc walking and gesticulating, probably imagining that he was some kind of hero to flirt with the beauty. As the two people passed through the alley, their foot kicked the thread and broke it. A dry Phup sound rang out in the dark night, and a white balloon appeared in the dark sky from the branch and swooped down. Back and forth, dragging long strands of newspaper fluttering, banging against each other and screeching, waving like ghostly hands, reaching out to grab the two of them. I saw Mr. Thai Duc silent and not speaking with one word. He immediately pulled his legs up to his neck, leaving his lover and running for his life. His shiny new shoes, bought last week, he stepped on the muddy puddles in the alley, making them sound muddy, like a rusty sound. 3 artillery shells shattered the stillness of the night, and Ms. Thursday Tan screamed like she was being chased by a ghost, running after Thai Duc deep into the darkness of the alley while cursing her lover in her heart. Treacherous, his face looks like a lonely soul but his heart is as cowardly as a rabbit. When he holds her in his arms, he promises to take care of her and protect him in every way. When he encounters trouble, he quickly throws his little lover back as an animal. I sacrificed myself, and I was worried about running away. I laughed until my stomach hurt, but I tried to hold back and not dare to make a sound. A few minutes later, I secretly ran out to find a balloon, deflated it, and played it. The story of Mr. Thai Duc and Ms. Thursday Tan being caught by a ghost jumping down from a tree became a rumor, and from then on, no one except me dared to walk alone past that magical and mysterious tree at night. A few weeks later, I saw a small red altar placed under a kumquat tree. In the afternoons, Mrs. Thu still went out there to burn incense and silently pray to the deity or the evil ghost that night to remember to protect her and keep her alive. A few more decades to take care of him and worship him. When I grew up, I had to go to Saigon to study, staying at my aunt and uncle's house near Tsong Hoa football field. My uncle has a distant cousin he hired from the countryside to help with housework. Her name is Own. She is about 16 or 17 years old, her face is round, her hair is jet black, down to the middle of her back, her cheeks are dimpled. When you smile, you look very charming. That day, the whole family went to see Kai Luong Opera, only Own and I were at home. I sat at the table next to the window upstairs to study for the exam. I couldn't stop studying. I was so bored that I thought about entertainment. Knowing that Own is afraid of ghosts, I thought of a way to scare him away. I then took a small round tree, about 2 meters long, placed it in the middle of a white mosquito net. Inside the mosquito net I placed a white pillow, tied the pillow to the middle of the tree with the white mosquito net covering it. When this log is lifted, it drags with it a white mosquito net that looks like a giant dressed in white with arms outstretched, with a huge head made of a pillow that shakes ferociously. Then I took a very long string and tied it to a tree with a mosquito net, threaded it through the circular ring on the beam in the middle of the house, and extended it to the corner of the table where I hid. After that, I turned off all the lights and left them alone. A dim, unreal shadow. Sometimes I pick up a few items and let them fall to the wooden floor, making unusual popping sounds. So Own had to curiously go upstairs to see what was going on. When I saw it walking up the stairs, I pulled hard on the rope. The tree pulled the mosquito net and flew to the roof like a white ghost with its long arms outstretched, suddenly as if I wanted to strangle it, in addition to the huge head covering it. The ghost's white fabric swayed and looked terrifying, as if it wanted to devour it. In the dim light of the night, the mosquito net appeared just like an evil ghost in horror stories. Then I heard it fall with a thud. Luckily the floor was wooden, so it didn't break its head or break any arms, but it lay still and didn't move at all. When I turned on the light, I saw it lying down like a zombie, its face pale, its long black tangled hair covering its face like a dead person, making my soul go crazy without even being able to laugh a single word. Wow! If anything happens to Own, my life will go to a dead end from here on, because my uncle will not forgive me for this heinous crime. I scrambled to sit down, reached out my hand to lift his head up. His whole body was as soft as a noodle, making me even more afraid that he would die. I lifted my hand so that his head lay on my lap. How many times had I learned CPR and how to resuscitate him? Military training courses at school and medical school appeared like lightning in my mind. I definitely had to use all my academic talents to save a life, and also save my own life. Just as I bent down to breathe into its mouth to revive it, I saw its red lips open like a rose, its eyes closed as if sleeping, its chest silent and motionless, if at all. Breathing was very light, my heart was pounding like someone who had just returned from jogging 100 kilometers. I was very scared, afraid because he could die if I didn't save him in time, shaking because I knew I couldn't do CPR on that animal. The pink lips are parted like a young flower bud. The older I get, the more sophisticated and realistic my ghosting technique becomes. If it weren't for the limited scope of this newspaper, I wouldn't be able to cover another 10 pages, but every story would be fascinating. Everything is very scary. But, Sow the seeds and one day you will reap the rewards. If you ignore the ghosts that people give you, when it's your turn to meet the real ghosts. I still remember that night I was on duty at Hong Bang Hospital. Before coming to Hong Bang Hospital, I heard my seniors say that this hospital had many ghosts. I have also read many ghost stories written by previous doctors in this hospital. But I just smiled, shrugged my shoulders, and said in my heart that I'm the only one who's shy about other people. No ghost dares to be shy about me. If there were real ghosts like in the strange tales stories, I would hope to meet them even more, because at least in my life I would still have bright, golden days with beautiful, graceful ghosts appearing to take care of me for a few moments. One day like in those horror stories, and then you can go to heaven right away. Hong Bang Hospital specializes in tuberculosis, located at the corner of Hong Bang Avenue and Treacherous Street. The hospital is very large with many rows of sick camps. The roof is covered with old red tiles. 1 or 2 dark and cold floors have been built in the Western style since the French rule in Vietnam. Only one ward at the end of the hospital has been built later. This is very spacious, fully equipped with amenities on all 4 clean floors. The second floor is for students of universities in Saigon to come for medical treatment. There is a spacious staircase divided in 2, on the right is male student area, on the left is female student area. In the hospital, there are winding, zigzag walking paths, connecting from one hospital to another, more than 2 meters wide. Some are paved with asphalt, some are paved with smooth stones, but all are loose because they are not properly maintained. Long-term repair. On both sides of these small winding roads are huge trees. Some are so big that 2 people can't hug them all. Their branches and leaves are luxuriant and dense, covering the path. Even during the day you can feel it. Creepy, cold, gloomy. Here and there are bushes 1 or 2 meters high, crowded together with all kinds of big leaves, small leaves, long leaves, short leaves, dark green and light green, growing disorderly, as if intentionally hiding the sick camps with sweeping walls. Yellow lime appears in the distance. Surrounding the hospital is a fence made of black iron bars about 2 meters high, with points as sharp as arrows. Some are still painted, some are rusted. At the fence on the side of Treacherous Street, there is a small temple built of red bricks and green tiles, leaning against the hospital. Inside the incense burner are many new red incense sticks, and a bunch of green bananas, one a dark brown earthen teapot and a few small bowls, which looked like they were regularly worshipped. It is said that many patients in this hospital commit suicide, because the ghosts have to find a replacement to be reincarnated into another life, so they have to worship to avoid being disturbed by these unjust spirits. Personally, I think that patients with tuberculosis are mentally very clear, but they know that their disease, at that time, cannot be cured. Their homes are in short supply, they no longer have money, and everyone shuns them. He was so depressed that he sought death to clear his life's debts. That night I was on duty alone, having to go back and forth from one hospital to another under those cold, gloomy trees. Normally, I fall asleep very early, but that night I was extremely alert, because in the afternoon, before going on duty, I pampered Tam, my classmate, to go to Thuy Van Cafe at the beginning of the alley, where there was a shopkeeper. Lovely coffee that she loves so much, but doesn't dare to go alone. This shop only sells filter coffee, so I had to drink a cup of bitter coffee, grit my teeth and listen to all the sad love songs, and looking at his sad, lovelorn face, I felt even more bored with life. What's the point of pretending to be in love to make your body miserable? As for me, I know for sure that this cup of coffee will make me unable to sleep tonight, but it's okay, I have to stay awake anyway. What I didn't expect was that this bitter cup of coffee would keep me awake. And extremely lucid, so the story of me seeing a ghost is not a dream. It was about 12 o'clock at night, and I was called to a hospital far away. At the end of the hospital, to sign the death certificate for an old man about 60 years old. This man had a very severe case of tuberculosis. He could not eat or drink for a long time. His body was thin and dry, with skin and bones. 2 days ago, the disease had spread to the blood vessels in his lungs, so he coughed up a lot of blood. So his family drove him from Ben-Luc to the hospital. Everyone knew he wouldn't live long. But tonight, choosing the exact night I was on duty, he died right at midnight, forcing me to wander in the cold night sky to his faraway hospital for an examination, after making sure his heart and lungs were intact. The nervous system and brain had all stopped working before they dared to sign the death certificate so that the doctor could push this lifeless body into the cold room, waiting until tomorrow to notify the family to come pick up the body and bury it. So in the middle of this cold and sacred night, I just sent another person off to the other side of the world. This profession of a physician always stands precariously between two worlds. On this side is life, on the other side is death. Some people just saw it and quickly went to the other side, without having time to wave or say goodbye. Some people are about to die, about to reach the other shore, then they struggle to pull themselves back from the hands of death to return to this side of the world. Between death and life it seems that there is some kind of continuous bond, not a single one. As simple as people often think. Thoughts about life and death, about this world and the next world, kept lingering in my mind. My footsteps continued to wander along the creepy, dark, winding paths back home. Booking. Tonight, the sky in Saigon is cold. Occasionally a gust of wind blows through, stirring the luxuriant branches and leaves of the large, arrogant trees, emitting whispering, rustling sounds, like ghostly, teasing calls. Cowardly people in the dark night. About every 20 meters away, a dim round electric light bulb dangled along the paths, not enough to illuminate the footsteps groping on the gravel. But I am already familiar with these roads, familiar with the groaning and twisting sounds of small pebbles under the heels of black shoes. In the dark, they seem to scream louder, sometimes as if cursing, sometimes creating creepy laughter like ghosts from the invisible realm to scare away weak-minded people. High in the sky among the sparse, sad night stars was an old crescent moon that did not brighten the dense darkness in the hospital one bit. There are few stars in the sky tonight. The light is weak, sparkling like ghosts weaving between the dense, black branches, constantly trembling with the gusts of wind that suddenly come and go. When I was about to turn left to return to the duty room, I suddenly saw under the blinding light in the distance on my right-hand side a white shadow sitting on the ice along the small road in front of the entrance to the student hospital. I stopped and looked, but it was too far away so I couldn't see who the white figure on the ice was. A nurse or a doctor, right? But when I signed the death certificate, the doctor was still in the hospital, so he couldn't have come here before me. Maybe a nurse came out to sit in the cool breeze to get better. I continued walking back to the room. After only walking a few steps, I seemed to hear a sobbing sound mixed with the sound of the stones groaning under my feet. I quickly stopped to listen. The crying then became clearer. It was the cry of a girl. The cry was only light, but it sounded clearly as if someone was crying in my ear. The cry sounded so sad, so painful that it made me feel a pang in the bottom of my heart. I stood there in a daze, wondering what to do, not knowing if I could be of any help to people. Of course, if people need anything, I'm ready to help with all my heart, but I'm also very shy because of my personality. At that time, I was shy about getting to know girls, especially when I met a strange girl in the middle of the night like this. I didn't know what to say, so I told myself that it was their private matter and I stepped in. For what? I continued to slowly walk away. But that sobbing sound, once again even though it was very small, was still clearly heard in my ears. It seemed like it was intentionally flying along to pour into my ears the plaintive, mournful words from a faraway realm of darkness. The echoes made my legs unable to continue walking. My steps suddenly slowed down and stopped completely. That white shadow was now hidden behind the dense bushes, but the soft crying continued to fill me. Filled my ears, my heart felt sad, my heart ached every time. At that moment, the wind suddenly blew from somewhere, rushing, continuously, loudly above my head, causing the small leaves on the old trees to fall like rain. The branches and leaves tilted and whispered, twisted and groaned. Like in a storm, but all that still couldn't drown out the sound of the girl crying in my ears. The weak crescent moon high in the sky suddenly hid behind dark clouds, making the whole sky dark. The dim electric light bulb lost in the hospital swayed with each gust of wind, making the already dim light even brighter. More blurry. The sky seemed to fall lower, the dark space around me seemed to become even more dense. I felt like a cold breeze was blowing into the white robe I was wearing, then seeping into my spine, making me shiver and suddenly feel boundless cold, just like the stories about ghosts entering my body that I had read as a child. But until then, I still firmly believed that there could be no ghosts in this world, so I was very calm, not paying attention to what was happening around me and only focusing on thinking about the girl. Lonely, unhappy, embracing sadness, sobbing and crying in the middle of the stormy wind at night in this hospital. After a minute of wondering, I walked back to see what was going on, trying to find out if I could help. When I got close to the white shadow, the sky suddenly cleared up, the crescent moon protruded from the clouds again, brighter than before, surrounded by thousands of twinkling stars, flashing happily in the late night sky. The wind also stopped blowing. I suddenly smelled the faint scent of jasmine flowers, which surprised me, because I knew for sure that in this hospital there were no plants with flowers, especially fragrant flowers like jasmine, because usually patients or relatives will pick them all, and the trees will be bare. So they will only grow trees with no flowers or fruit. The smell of jasmine is very familiar to me. It can be said that it is the only flower smell that I like, so familiar that I can smell this flower from far away. The reason is because when I was a child, there was a small garden in front of my house. My mother planted a jasmine tree in it. I often put up a chair and sit in the garden to read romantic novels. Unknowingly, the scent was pure and sweet. And the gentleness of this innocent white flower has penetrated my sense of smell, merged with my body, become one with me, and is the only fragrance in my life that I like to smell, so when I grow up I don't like the smell of water. There are no other flowers, but unfortunately there are no cosmetic stores that sell the scent of jasmine. As I approached the white shadow, the gentle scent of jasmine became even stronger, making me feel refreshed, lightheaded, ecstatic, extremely comfortable. I forgot all the hardships of the day, suddenly feeling very sympathetic with this girl, and suddenly I felt very close to her, as if I had known this girl for a long time. The sobbing sound then suddenly became smaller. Perhaps the white shadow knew that someone was approaching. The electric light bulb on the side of the road had stopped shaking, allowing me to clearly see that the white figure sitting on the ice was a thin, small girl, with long, silky black hair that was not curled, falling down to the middle of her back, her head slightly bowed, leaning forward, causing a row of hair to fall straight down like a thin black curtain, vaguely covering half of her oval face. She is wearing a white ba shirt and soft white silk pants. Looking at the way she dressed, I knew that she was not a nurse or hospital employee, perhaps a newly admitted patient or a relative who had a sad story and came here to mourn alone. As I got closer, the scent of jasmine became even more fragrant, making me feel very calm. I gently asked, "Sorry. Is there anything that makes you unhappy?" She slowly raised her head and looked at me. I saw the ground around me shaking slightly. I couldn't stand very steady, because in front of me was a stunningly beautiful girl, about 20 years old. Her eyes, it's so sad, the jet black color sparkles as if it contains 1,000 lost stars sparkling in the sky, 2 rows of long, black, curled eyelashes, very rarely seen on Vietnamese girls. Her facial skin is white and smooth. I have never seen anyone so white without makeup, but her lips are a bit pale like an anemic person. Maybe she is suffering from tuberculosis and has to come here for treatment. Tangled strands of hair stuck to her high forehead, a few strands stuck to her cheeks as if they were still soaked with tears. Perhaps she had been sitting here crying for a long time. She just looked at me for a moment and then bent down and sobbed. While her crying made me feel sad, now her crying made me feel 10 times more painful, looking at her small thin shoulders trembling under the white silk. My insides felt like they were being torn apart. I was so sad, I stood still and didn't know what to say. The space around me seemed frozen, cold and stiff for thousands of years, like icebergs at the 2 poles of the earth. For a long time, I tried to figure it out in my head. Brainstorming sentences from the romance novels I read as a child, I opened my mouth to say one sentence. "Dear teacher, is there anything I can do for you?" She just shook her head gently, letting her long hair flutter, without saying anything. Seeing people suffering so much, I suddenly became heroic to help people, so I became bolder. My mind was clear again, and I advised her. "Go back to bed and think, don't stay out here for too long, the late night dew is very cold, don't worry about getting sick." Then she spoke, her voice was so soft, so light but so sad. "I don't have a bed to lie down and rest. I don't have anything else. Mr. Bin, I'm dead." At that time, I was so dizzy I felt like I was suffocating. I felt my whole body struggling and unable to stand. It wasn't because I was afraid that she would be shy of me. Up until that moment, there was no way ghosts could exist in this world for me. I still chuckled inside because this girl was really shy of me and pretended to be shy. I chose the wrong person. I'm very lucky that I'm not afraid of pimps. I was stunned because I didn't know why in the middle of the night a girl as beautiful as a swan came down and suddenly knew my name. I ignored the ghost talk and quickly asked what her name was. How did she know my name? "My name is Lai, Truong T. Lai. I was studying literature in my first year when I got sick, so I stayed in the female student area for a whole month to get treatment." Seeing that he often visited Mr. Trung, his friend, located next to the male student area, Mr. Trung often came to play the piano for us to sing, so we got used to him. Mr. Trung said he was very gentle, so we paid attention and knew his name. "Don't trust him, he's as fierce as a tiger, not gentle." "Hey, why are you crying? Why are you out here alone so late? Aren't you afraid of ghosts? It's cold like this, and if you don't wear warm clothes, what if you get sick? Since when have you been sitting here? If you're hungry, I'll bring you some cake to eat. This hospital has a lot of ghosts, I want you to tell me some stories. Can I sit down? All night long, my legs are tired from standing and walking. Why did you bring jasmine flowers here? I like jasmine very much, the scent is very pleasant, you know." Lai chuckled. "Why do you ask so many questions? How can I answer? So don't ask me why you cry. Girls can cry about anything, how do you know how to answer? So your boys cry very little. Easy / there are only 3 things that make boys cry. The first is failing the exam, the second is losing the car, the third is losing the girlfriend." Lai suddenly laughed out loud, her laughter was as clear and long as crystal, making me feel indescribably happy. I just hoped she wouldn't return to the hospital to rest according to my foolish advice just now, but would continue to sit. "Here, talk to me a little longer. Lie smiled and asked, "Why is losing a boyfriend ranked last? If you lose your boyfriend, you can find another one /. If you lose your car, you have no hope of having money to buy another one /. If you fail the exam, you have to join the army and don't know when you'll be able to return /. But you don't know if you'll still be able to come back /. For so losing you is only ranked third. And why are you crying?" "I'm sorry, because I'm dead." "Don't talk nonsense. How can you die with such a beautiful face?" "I know you won't believe what I say. It's been 3 days since I died, but because it wasn't on time, my soul is still wandering around here. Besides, I also want to meet you, to repay you for taking care of me in the past." At this point, I still thought that Lai was intentionally teasing me, just like I had teased others, so I teased him back. "Then I'm also a ghost, because I just died a little inside." Lai smiled and whimpered. "Yet Mr. Trung keeps saying that he is very gentle." "Good or bad depends on the person facing you," Lai advised me. "Go back to your room and rest, don't sit here, the late night dew is very cold." "Aren't you cold?" "It's very cold." I held Lai's hand. The hand was very soft but very cold, just like the hands of the corpses in the cold room that I had the opportunity to fondle during autopsy classes, but I thought it was because of Lai. Sitting too long late at night makes you cold. I quickly took off the white hospital gown I was wearing around her back, covering her shoulders. She raised her hands and ran them through her soft, shiny hair, pushing the stream of black hair outside the gown. White. At this time, my eyes had gotten used to the dim light. Looking closely, I saw that Lai was extremely beautiful, as sad and beautiful as the sad fairies in the upper world who were banished to earth. "Oh my God /, why are you so cold /, sitting outside in this cold weather without wearing a cold shirt, what if you get sick /, please wear this coat /, your hands are so cold /, or should you turn back? Go back to the hospital." Lai spoke slowly, her voice was so deep, as if it were coming from a distant underworld. "I told you I was really dead but you didn't believe me. I don't have a bed anymore so I can go to the camp to lie down. Just now you asked me why I brought jasmine flowers here. I didn't bring the jasmine here for anything, it's just because in my past life I was a jasmine flower, so after I died, I returned to my previous life so I have the scent of jasmine. Most of the names and events that happen around us are not random, but everything has countless opportunities to come together. People like you who are still alive do not have a deep understanding. Or we don't have the opportunity to concentrate on meditation to look deeply and carefully at these opportunities, so we think everything comes naturally. Like me, it's not like my parents named me Lai for nothing. You have to let me check the bag if there is no jasmine in the bag, but if you really smell good then I will believe it. Just consider it." There was indeed nothing in her pocket, but the gentle scent of jasmine seemed to emanate from her hair, her skin, her breath. By that time, I believed she was a real ghost. But one day I will also die, will be a ghost like her, sitting next to such a beautiful ghost in the quiet night with the gentle, pleasant scent of jasmine that I have loved since I was a child. Like this, there's nothing scary. So I continued to sit there and talk about all sorts of things with Lai. She told me that she and I had been destined for each other in many previous lives, so tonight she appeared to see me again. She is the jasmine flower in my house's small garden in the past, and every afternoon I often come and sit next to her, often cradling and gently kissing the petals. Lai knows I like her scent, so she often closes her petals to try to hold in the scent, waiting until I return in the afternoon before she lets her petals open to radiate a fragrant scent. As for me, in the past I loved jasmine very much, so I was always gentle and careful with watering and fertilizing. Lai said that she appreciated that gesture, so now she wanted to meet again to express her thanks for the opportunity to reunite before. In the past, sitting together, even though we didn't say a word, we were very close to each other, cared for and loved each other with a very gentle and pure love. Tonight, we sit next to each other, the yin and the yang, although we belong to two very distant worlds. Not only are our bodies so close as if they were stuck together, but our two souls seem to have been entwined with each other since forever. In past lives, we respected each other very much. We told each other about the joys and sorrows that had happened in our lives. We got along very well, so that whole night we never stopped talking. However, my mouth was bitter at that time. My heart was broken because I knew that this gentle and beautiful girl I had just met and whom I felt like I had loved for many lifetimes was just a ghost, and in just a few moments, we will be thousands of miles apart, separated in two different worlds, not knowing when we will see each other again. Knowing I was sad, Lai slowly explained that we were actually destined for each other many lifetimes ago. We were once a pair of birds flying high in the sky all day long. We were once a pair of butterflies, fluttering and chasing each other in the deep forest. I was once the shade of a tree standing on the bank of the stream to shade Lai. And she was the sweet stream that gurgled and sang for me all day long. We have met before and have been apart for many lifetimes, but because our feelings are so strong, we keep coming back to be close to each other. But even when we are apart, we still carry each other's image in our hearts. Lai gives an example. I am like a white cloud floating in the blue sky, and Lai is like a peaceful river flowing gently through many rice fields, through many forests. No matter where we stand, we can still see below. The river always embraces the image of clouds, and wherever the clouds fly, they always carry the cool, sweet water drops of the river. Standing outside, we thought the river and the white clouds were two infinitely separate entities, but in fact we were present in each other every moment, and the clouds would return to the river one day. Lai advised me not to be sad, to try to take care of my health. In some future life we will meet again. The night was almost over. I knew the time of parting was about to come. I had just tasted the painful meaning that lay in the eternal farewell. Then, in the remaining darkness of my life, I still have to continue to walk alone on empty roads and hear the sound of gravel and stones twisting under the lonely heels of my shoes in the dark night, as I walked on the cold streets last night in this hospital. Even though the sadness was breaking my heart, I tried not to show it, but Lai also understood. She advised me not to be sad. Consider this as a long trip, and tomorrow we will return. We'll see you again. Before saying goodbye, Lai gave me a short poem. Her voice was so small and deep, it seemed like she was as sad as me. I studied math and science since I was young, so I was very bad at poetry, but I heard her read this poem just once and I still remember it to this day. Before saying goodbye, Lai thanked me for making her less sad. I thanked Lai for giving me a beautiful night, letting me smell the gentle scent of flowers that I had loved since I was a child. I prayed, I will carry these memories with me for the rest of my life. I hope to see her again soon in another reincarnation. Lai said she loved her mother very much and brought a thin red sweater, neatly folded next to her, but I hadn't seen it, so she gave it to me and asked me to bring it to her mother's house, telling her mother to dress warmly during the day. Cold days. Teacher. 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 I heard someone calling in my ear. When I opened my eyes, it was already dawn. I felt very cold. Looking up, I saw Nurse Hong standing there with her eyes wide open, staring at me and my white coat. Lying next to me on the backrest of the stone chair in front of the entrance to the student hospital where I was sitting. I quickly stood up and put on my coat to ward off the cold. The gentle scent of jasmine drifted into my nose from inside my coat, making me ecstatic. I knew that jasmine was still around somewhere. Ms. Hong backslash, is there anything you want to call? Chen, I've been looking for the teacher all night and can't find it. How long has the teacher been sitting here? I passed by here 2 or 3 times and never saw it. Are you seriously ill in the camp, Ms. Hong? No. Because we cooked a pot of green bean sweet soup outside the on-call room, thinking of inviting the teacher to eat together for fun, but we looked everywhere but couldn't find it. The sweet soup must have gone cold by now. Where did the teacher go? Dr. Bay said that the teacher signed the death certificate late at night and then disappeared backslash. When I asked Uncle Tu, the gatekeeper, he did not see the teacher leaving the hospital, backslash when I went into the teacher's on-duty room, it was also deserted, ladies. I split up and searched everywhere for the teacher but couldn't find him. Where is the teacher? I was also confused. I've been sitting on this bench since late at night and haven't seen anyone passing by. Dear backslash, I passed by here 3 times backslash, the last 2 times I went with Ms. Ha because I was afraid of ghosts and didn't dare to go alone backslash, now at dawn I dare to go alone backslash. The teacher sat, is this really it backslash, we must be wearing glasses for nearsightedness. I followed Ms. Hong back to the on-call room, my face bewildered, my mind still reeling with thousands of questions about the 2 paths of yin and yang, about the first pure love in my life, with a wonderfully beautiful girl, but it just comes and goes faster than a dream, it's impossible to explain. I have long tried to train myself to be a tough person, a heart of stone that cannot be disturbed by nonsense love stories so that I can always step forward boldly into life like brave heroes. Since ancient times, my heart has always been indifferent to the charms of beauty. Sometimes I even criticize my friends who have gloomy faces and are heartbroken, or laugh and tease those who are so tired of love that they forget their meetings, so they are often imprisoned while still in the military, like Dr. Truong Chi Van. Dr. Nguyen Hu Tuong. As for me, my soul is always at peace, always diligent in exercising my body, diligently and enthusiastically fulfilling all my duties and responsibilities, but this time I was injured. Collapsing, my iron heart disintegrated into a squishy puddle like a block of ice that had just been exposed to the bright sunlight. My heart is sobbing with every beat of love, my heart is sobbing with a deep sadness, mourning for a wonderfully beautiful and gentle girl with the faint scent of jasmine who has passed away so soon. So, as soon as I entered the on-call room, everyone immediately became quiet, all eyes were shining straight at me like bright headlights of a car in the dark, they wanted to know what happened. All night long on my dazed face. I didn't say a word, immediately sat down at the table, reached for the only remaining cup of green bean soup in the middle of the table, no need to be polite at all, because I felt terribly hungry, and it was cold. It was too late, the cup of sweet soup was cold, but I ate it all in one go and it was delicious. A few weak rays of early morning sunlight peeked out the window, there was a small bird chirping in the distance on a high tree branch signaling that dawn was coming. I slowly calmed down and looked at everyone, 4 nurses standing next to each other. My hair and clothes were neatly prepared, I waited until the meeting was over and then I went home to rest, but at this moment everyone was waiting anxiously, wanting to know what happened to me all night long. Ms. Liu, the head nurse, worriedly asked. What happened last night, teacher? I was not in a hurry to answer. I slowly stood up, lazily walked to the large refrigerator in the corner of the room, opened the door, filled a glass of cold water, took a big sip, and slowly told everyone what happened that day. Everyone's eyes widened and their mouths opened in surprise. Ms. Liu said, I feel so sorry for Ms. Lai, she cried all the time when she came here. Is Ms. Lai in the female student area? That's right, she died 3 days ago. She is very beautiful, the most beautiful in the camp, many students here are very fond of her, but it seems like she doesn't pay attention to anyone. Was the previous teacher familiar with her? No, it's my first time meeting her. Then the teacher is very lucky. What the hell is Peach Blossom? Up until now, I've always been alone, and by the time I get to know someone, they've already died 3 days ago. My eyes suddenly stopped when I saw a red sweater stacked neatly on a shelf next to the wall. I quickly walked over and picked it up to see. That's right, the red sweater that Lai asked me to bring home for my mother. I ask, whose shirt is this? Ms. Lu said she didn't know whose shirt had been left there for 3 days. I just explained that it was Lai's shirt that I sent to my mother, but everyone shook their heads and stuck out their tongues. I quickly flipped through the medical book on the duty desk, searched for Truong T. Lai's name. Here it was, home address number. Truong Min Jong Street, Tan Binh District. I wrote it down on a small piece of paper, carefully put it in my pocket, then grabbed my red sweater and slowly left the duty room and walked out, feeling my heart broken, walking like a soulless body, forgetting all about work. Had to stay for briefing that day. End.